Minji Park stood at the edge of the landing platform and looked up at the purple sky of Vraxia Prime. The air smelled strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. She checked her helmet one more time. The clear visor was clean. The air filter was working. Everything was ready. Behind her, Ambassador Hyun-tae was talking to the security team. His voice was serious and formal. He always followed the rules exactly. Minji liked rules too, but she knew that sometimes you had to bend them a little, especially when meeting new alien friends. Captain Daehyun Lee walked over to her. He was tall and carried a weapon on his belt. He looked worried. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "The Vraxians are predators. Big ones. Their claws are as long as your hand." Minji smiled inside her helmet. People always worried about predators. But she had grown up with dogs, big dogs. Dogs with teeth and strong jaws. Yet dogs were also friends. They played and protected and loved. Maybe the Vraxians were the same. "I will be careful," she told Daehyun. "But we cannot make friends if we only show fear." The Vraxian delegation appeared from behind the tall stone buildings. Minji heard the humans behind her gasp. She understood why. The Vraxians were huge. Each one stood 3 meters tall. Their bodies were covered in dark scales that shined in the purple light. They walked on 2 powerful legs. Their arms ended in hands with long claws. Their faces had sharp teeth that showed when they opened their mouths. But Minji saw something else too. She saw how they moved carefully, how they kept space between themselves and the humans. They were being polite. They were trying not to scare the visitors. The largest Vraxian stepped forward. This was Prime Matriarch Velcra. Her scales were darker than the others. She wore a decorated cloth across her shoulders. When she spoke, her voice was deep and powerful. "Welcome to Vraxia Prime, humans from Earth. We are honored by your visit." Ambassador Hyun-tae stepped forward and gave a formal bow. He began the greeting speech. It was long and full of proper diplomatic words. Minji listened but also looked around. She was a xenobiologist. Her job was to study alien life and behavior, and right now she saw something interesting. Behind the adult Vraxians, small faces peeked out from doorways. Cubs. The young ones were watching. Their eyes were bright with curiosity. One cub, smaller than the others, kept moving closer. Its scales were lighter, almost gray. It tilted its head left and right, studying the strange visitors. Minji felt a familiar warmth in her chest. She recognized that look. It was the same look puppies had when they saw something new and exciting. The same look human children had in museums. This was not danger. This was curiosity. The ceremony continued. There were more speeches, more formal words. The humans and Vraxians exchanged gifts. The Vraxians gave them a carved stone tablet. The humans gave them a datapad with information about Earth. Then came the moment Minji had been waiting for. It was time for the trust gesture. Ambassador Hyun-tae had argued against this part. He thought it was too risky, but Minji had convinced him. Trust had to start somewhere. She reached up and unlocked her helmet. The seals hissed as they opened. She lifted the helmet off her head. The alien air touched her skin. It felt cool and dry. She took a breath. The air tasted fine. A little different from Earth air, but good. The Vraxians made a sound together. It was surprise and respect. Removing protective gear was a sign of trust. It said, "I believe you will not hurt me." Prime Matriarch Velcra nodded slowly. Her eyes showed approval. Minji held her helmet at her side. She smiled. This was good. This was the right choice. Then something fast and gray shot out from behind the adult Vraxians. It was the small cub. The curious one. It ran straight toward Minji. Its claws clicked on the stone ground. Its eyes were locked on the helmet in her hand. Everything happened very fast. Captain Daehyun reached for his weapon. The adult Vraxians roared in alarm. Ambassador Hyun-tae shouted something. But the cub was faster than all of them. The little Vraxian grabbed the helmet right out of Minji's hands. Its small claws wrapped around the curved surface. It looked at Minji for just a moment. Then it turned and ran. The adults were moving now. Vraxian guards stepped forward. Human security raised their weapons. The careful, peaceful ceremony was breaking apart, but Minji did something no one expected. She laughed. It was a real laugh, full of joy and amusement. The sound cut through all the tension. Everyone stopped and looked at her. "Wait," she called out. She held up her hands. "Everyone, please wait." The cub had stopped running too. It was about 10 meters away now. It had turned around to look back at her. The helmet was clutched to its small chest. Its tail swished back and forth. And its mouth was open in what looked almost like a smile. Minji knew that look. She had seen it 1,000 times on Earth, at dog parks, at playgrounds. On the faces of baby animals everywhere, it wanted to play. "Lieutenant Park," Captain Daehyun said urgently. "Step back. Let us handle this." "No," Minji said. She was still smiling. "I know what to do." She took a step toward the cub. Then another. She did not move fast or aggressive. She moved the way you move toward a puppy, gentle but confident. The cub's eyes got wider. It made a chirping sound. Then it turned and ran again, but it did not run away. It ran in a circle, and it kept looking back to see if Minji was following. Minji started to run too, not fast, not chasing like she wanted to catch it. She ran like she was playing, like this was a game. Behind her, she heard Ambassador Hyun-tae call her name. She heard the confusion in the voices of both humans and Vraxians. But she also heard something else. She heard Prime Matriarch Velcra say one word very quietly. "Wait." The matriarch was telling her people to wait, to watch, to see what the human would do. Minji chased the cub across the stone plaza. The little Vraxian was fast, but Minji could have been faster. She had trained for situations like this. She could run, climb, and move quickly, but she did not use her full speed. She let the cub stay ahead. She let it think it was winning. Because that was how you played. That was how you made a game fun for everyone. The cub looked back again. When it saw Minji was still there, still following, it made a happy sound. It ran faster, but in a playful way. Its movements were bouncy and excited. Other Vraxian cubs had come out now. They watched from doorways and windows. Some of the adult Vraxians watched too. Their faces showed confusion. Maybe they had forgotten what play looked like. Maybe their serious military culture had made them forget this simple joy. But Minji remembered. Humans never forgot how to play. It was part of what made them human. It was how they made friends. It was how they built trust. And right now she was going to show the whole galaxy something important. She was going to show them that even across the stars, even between completely different species, play was still the universal language of friendship. The chase was just beginning. The young Vraxian ran through the streets of the settlement. Its small claws clicked rapidly on the smooth stone paths. Minji's helmet bounced against its chest as it ran. The cub kept looking back to make sure the human was still there. Minji followed at a steady pace. She could hear her own heartbeat. She could feel the cool alien air in her lungs, but mostly she felt happy. This was working. The cub was not afraid. It was playing. Behind them, she heard voices. Captain Daehyun was calling her name.
She touched her ear where her communication device was hidden.
She pressed the button quickly twice. It was their signal for "I am okay, let me work." The cub turned down a narrow street between tall buildings. The walls were covered with colorful paintings. Minji saw pictures of Vraxian history, battles, hunts, victories. This was a proud warrior species. But somewhere in their past, they must have played too. All intelligent species started with play. Adult Vraxians stopped what they were doing to watch. They stood in doorways with their mouths open in surprise. Some pointed. Some made worried sounds. One large Vraxian moved to block the cub's path, but Minji shook her head quickly. She waved her hand in a stopping gesture. The adult Vraxian looked confused but stepped aside. The cub chirped happily when the path cleared. It was having fun. This was the best day of its young life. It had stolen something from the strange alien visitors. And now it was being chased, but not really chased. The human was not angry. The human was smiling and running, but not trying too hard to catch up. Minji understood this feeling. She had felt it herself as a child. The thrill of a game. The joy of play. Her mother used to chase her through their garden, always just slow enough that young Minji could stay ahead. It had made her feel fast and clever. It had made her feel brave. Now she was doing the same thing for this alien child. She was giving it confidence. She was showing it that not all strangers were dangerous. Some strangers could be friends. Some strangers knew how to play. They entered a marketplace. Stalls lined both sides of the street. Vraxian merchants sold food, cloth, and tools. The smells were strange and strong. Minji saw purple fruits piled high. She saw silver fish hanging from hooks. She saw everything blur past as she ran. The cub weaved between the stalls. It was showing off now. Jumping over boxes, sliding under tables. It wanted to prove how quick and clever it was. Minji followed the same path, but she made sure to bump into things a little. She made her movements look clumsy. The watching Vraxians made sounds of approval. The cub was outrunning the human. The cub was winning. Good, Minji thought. Let it win. Let it feel proud. More cubs appeared at the edges of the market. 3, 4, 5 of them. They watched with bright, excited eyes. One small cub tried to join the chase, but an adult pulled it back. Not yet. This was between the human and the brave one who had taken the helmet. Minji's communication device beeped in her ear. She tapped it to listen while still running. Ambassador Hyuntai spoke. His voice was strained. Lieutenant Park, the matriarch wants to know your intentions. Should she order the cub to stop? Minji was breathing harder now, but she could still talk. No, tell her this is good. Tell her we are building trust. There was a pause. She could imagine the ambassador trying to find diplomatic words for what she was doing. He spoke again after a moment. She asks how this builds trust. Play is trust. When you play with someone, you show them you will not hurt them. You show them you understand joy. Tell her that. The cub had reached the far end of the market now. Ahead was an open plaza with a large fountain in the center. Water sprayed up and fell in patterns. The sound was pleasant, like music. The cub ran toward it, then suddenly stopped and turned around. It stood there, waiting. The helmet was still clutched in its small arms. Its chest moved up and down with quick breaths. It was tired but happy. Its eyes were locked on Minji. Minji slowed down. She understood what was happening. This was the finish line. The cub had chosen this spot. The fountain behind it, the watching crowd around it. This was where the race would end. She could have rushed forward now. She could have run at full speed and reached the cub in seconds, but that was not the point. The point was to let the cub win, to let it feel victorious, to let it have this story to tell its friends. So Minji ran slower. She made her movements look tired. She reached out as if trying to catch the cub, but she stayed just a bit too far away. The cub saw her coming. It waited until the last possible moment. Then, just as Minji got close, it jumped backward. It landed right at the edge of the fountain. It lifted the helmet high above its head like a trophy, and it made a sound. A loud, triumphant sound that echoed across the plaza. The watching Vraxians erupted in noise. They roared and clicked and stomped their feet. They were celebrating. Their cub had outrun the alien. Their cub had won. Minji stopped running. She bent over with her hands on her knees, pretending to be out of breath. She looked up at the cub and smiled widely. Then she did something else. She clapped her hands together. It was the human way of showing approval, of celebrating someone else's victory. The cub tilted its head. It did not understand the gesture, but it understood the feeling behind it. The human was not angry. The human was happy that the cub had won. Slowly, the cub walked toward Minji. It still held the helmet, but lower now. Not like a trophy, more like a gift. It stopped right in front of her. Up close, Minji could see how young it really was. Its scales were still soft. Its claws were not yet sharp. This was just a baby, a curious, playful baby. Minji knelt down to be at the same height. She held out her hands, palms up. It was a gesture of peace, of openness. The cub looked at her hands, then at her face, then back at the helmet. It seemed to be thinking. Finally, it held out the helmet. But it did not let go yet. This was a test. Would the human grab it roughly? Would the human be angry now that the game was over? Minji took the helmet gently. Her fingers touched the cub's small claws for just a moment. The cub did not pull away. It let her take the helmet. Then it sat back on its haunches and looked at her expectantly. More? Its expression seemed to say, "Can we play more?" Minji laughed. It was a warm, genuine sound. She set the helmet down on the ground between them. Then she picked up a small pebble from the plaza. She held it up so the cub could see. The cub's eyes followed the pebble with intense focus. Minji tossed the pebble gently to the side. It clattered across the stone. The cub's head snapped toward the sound. For a moment it looked like it wanted to chase the pebble, but it looked back at Minji first as if asking permission. Minji nodded and made a shooing gesture with her hand. "Go on, get it." The cub bounded after the pebble. It pounced on it with both front paws. Then it picked it up in its mouth and brought it back to Minji. It dropped the pebble at her feet and waited, tail swishing. The watching Vraxians had gone quiet. They were staring. This was not normal behavior. Adult Vraxians did not play. Cubs were taught to hunt, to fight, to survive. But they were not taught to play for the sake of playing. Yet here was their cub playing fetch like a human dog. And here was the human, teaching it this strange, wonderful game. Prime Matriarch Velcro walked slowly into the plaza. Her massive form cast a long shadow. Everyone turned to look at her. The market went completely silent. She looked at her cub. She looked at Minji. She looked at the helmet sitting on the ground and the pebble at Minji's feet. Then, slowly, the matriarch's mouth opened. Minji tensed, ready for anything. Was the matriarch angry? Insulted? Would this end badly? But what came out was not a roar. It was a sound Minji had never heard a Vraxian make. It was soft and rumbling. It sounded almost like laughter. Rix. That was the cub's name. You have made a friend today. She looked at Minji with her deep, intelligent eyes. And so have we all. 3 hours had passed since the chase. Minji sat cross-legged on the ground near the fountain. Rick sat across from her, watching everything she did with bright, curious eyes. Between them lay several objects. A smooth stone, a piece of red cloth, a small metal cylinder from Minji's equipment pack. Minji picked up the stone and held it behind her back. She showed Rix her empty hands. The cub tilted its head, confused. Where did the stone go? Minji brought her hands forward again. One was still empty. The other held the stone. Rix chirped with delight. This was the game. Hide something. Find it. Simple. But through this simple game, they were learning to trust each other, to understand each other, to speak without words. More cubs had gathered around them now. They sat at a careful distance, watching. Their parents stood even farther back, uncertain but interested. This was new for them. Cubs were supposed to train for survival. They were supposed to learn hunting skills and combat moves. But this human was teaching them something different. Ambassador Hyun Tai approached quietly. He had been watching from the edge of the plaza for the past hour. Now he came to stand beside Prime Matriarch Velcro. The massive Vraxian leader acknowledged him with a small nod. Your lieutenant is unusual, the matriarch said. Her voice was deep and thoughtful. She treats my cub like they are the same. Like species does not matter. Ambassador Hyun Tai considered his words carefully. Lieutenant Park sees the individual before the species. She believes that all intelligent beings share certain qualities. Curiosity, the desire to connect, the need for joy. The matriarch was quiet for a long moment. We stopped allowing our cubs to play many generations ago. We told ourselves it was a waste of time, that they needed to be strong, to be serious, to be warriors, and did it work? Hyun Tai asked gently. Are your people stronger now? We are feared. We are respected. But I wonder, the matriarch paused, I wonder if we lost something important along the way. Down by the fountain, Rix had finally worked up the courage to try the game himself. The cub picked up the metal cylinder and held it behind his back. Then he brought his small hands forward, one empty and one holding the cylinder. He looked at Minji expectantly. Minji pretended to think very hard. She pointed at the empty hand. Rix opened it to show nothing there. The cub made a happy chirping sound, proud to have tricked her. Then he opened the other hand to reveal the cylinder. Minji clapped her hands and smiled widely. The other cubs edged closer. One brave cub, slightly larger than Rix, took a step forward. Minji saw the movement and turned to look. She made her face friendly and open. She picked up the piece of red cloth and held it out. The larger cub looked back at its parent. The adult Vraxian made no move to stop it. Slowly, the cub came forward and took the cloth from Minji's hand. Its claws were gentle. It held the cloth up and examined it closely. The red color seemed to fascinate it. Minji made a gesture. Hide it, let us play. The larger cub understood. It tucked the cloth behind its back, then brought both hands forward. Empty. Empty. Then it peeked the cloth out from behind its shoulder, as if to say, here it is, come find it. Soon, 3 more cubs had joined the game. They sat in a circle with Minji, hiding objects and finding them, making up new rules as they went, laughing, yes, laughing. The Vraxian cubs could laugh. They made a chittering, clicking sound that was definitely joy. Dr. Jiwoo Kang, the human child psychologist, had been recording everything on a small camera. She came over to join Ambassador Hyun-tae and the matriarch. She bowed respectfully to both of them. "This is remarkable," Dr. Kang said quietly. She gestured to the playing cubs. "Do you see how they are learning? Not just the game. They are learning to read each other's faces, to predict behavior, to cooperate." The matriarch leaned forward, interested. "This is what human cubs do?" "Yes, and it is critical for development." Dr. Kang pulled up data on her tablet. Play teaches problem solving. It teaches empathy. It teaches social rules. Cubs who play become adults who can work together, who can understand different perspectives, who can build alliances. The matriarch looked at her people. The adult Vraxians were watching their cubs with strange expressions. Some looked sad. Some looked thoughtful. One old Vraxian, his scales faded with age, had tears in his eyes. "That elder is Throck," the matriarch explained. "He is the oldest among us. He remembers the time before we stopped playing. Before we decided that survival meant seriousness." Ambassador Hyun-tae watched as Minji showed the cubs how to play a clapping game. The cubs tried to copy her movements, their clawed hands meeting in patterns. They were not perfect at it, but they were trying, and they were having fun. "May I approach?" an old voice asked. It was Elder Throck. He walked slowly, his steps careful with age. The matriarch nodded her approval. The old Vraxian came to stand with them. He watched the cubs play for a long time without speaking. Finally, he said, "I was young when we still played. I remember games like this. Hiding stones, chasing shadows. We laughed. We were happy. What changed?" Dr. Kang asked gently. "The wars." Elder Throck's voice was heavy with old grief. "We fought other species. We had to be strong to survive. The council decided that play made us weak, that we needed every moment for training. So we stopped. We told our cubs that play was foolish, that only survival mattered, and now?" The matriarch asked her elder. "Now that the wars are over? Now that we have peace? Now we have forgotten how to be anything but warriors." Throck looked at the cubs with Minji. "But maybe it is not too late to remember." Rick suddenly ran over to the adults. The little cub tugged on the matriarch's leg cloth. When the giant leader looked down, Rix held up the smooth stone. "Play?" the cub seemed to ask. "Will you play with us?" The entire plaza went silent. Every Vraxian was watching. The matriarch was their leader, their example. If she said no, play would remain forbidden. If she said yes, everything would change. The matriarch looked at the stone. She looked at her cub. She looked at Minji, who was watching with hope but no pressure in her eyes. The human would accept whatever decision was made. Then, slowly, Prime Matriarch Velcra lowered herself to the ground. Her massive body folded down until she was sitting cross-legged like Minji. She was so large that even sitting, she towered over everyone. But somehow she made herself seem small, approachable, safe. She held out one giant hand. "Show me," she said to Rix. The cub squeaked with joy. He placed the stone in her palm. The matriarch closed her hand. Then she brought both hands forward. "Which one?" Her voice was gentle, playful even. Rix pointed at her left hand. The matriarch opened it, empty. The cub looked at the other hand. The matriarch opened it slowly. The stone was there. Rix chirped and jumped up and down. Around the plaza, adult Vraxians began to smile. It was a strange sight. These fierce warriors, these proud hunters showing joy like cubs. Some of them sat down. Some of them called to their own cubs. "Come, show us these games." Minji felt tears in her eyes. Happy tears. She had not expected this. She had just wanted to play with one curious cub. But she had started something much bigger. She had reminded an entire species of something they had lost. Captain Daehyun Lee came to stand beside her. He had been watching from a distance, ready to protect her if needed. But now his hand was relaxed at his side, away from his weapon. He looked amazed. "You did it." His voice was full of respect. "You actually did it." Minji wiped her eyes and smiled. "I just played with a cub. They did the rest themselves." They remembered. As the sun began to set on Vraxia Prime, the plaza filled with the sounds of playing. Cubs and adults together. Vraxians and humans together. Different species. Different worlds. But in this moment, they were all the same. They were all just people who understood that joy was important, that connection mattered, that play was not weakness, it was strength. And somewhere in the distant stars on the Galactic Council station, observers were watching the video feeds with confusion and wonder. They were witnessing something new, something that would change everything. The Galactic Council chamber was built to hold representatives from 50 different species. Today it was completely full. Everyone had come to discuss the incident on Vraxia Prime. The video of Lieutenant Minji Park playing with the Vraxian cub had spread across the entire galaxy in just 3 days. Counselor Hisrak of the Scalar species stood at the speaking platform. His reptilian body was covered in green and brown scales. His eyes were cold and calculating. He spoke with authority and disapproval. This behavior is dangerous. He gestured at the large screen showing the video. The human deliberately put herself at risk. She engaged with an unpredictable predator juvenile. She abandoned all security protocols. This is not diplomacy. This is recklessness. Murmurs of agreement came from some parts of the chamber. The more conservative species nodded their heads. They had built their civilizations on careful rules, on maintaining proper distance, on treating potential threats with suspicion. But other voices rose in disagreement. Wing Scholar Era of the Fair species spread her feathered arms wide. She was a researcher, curious and open-minded. Counselor Hisrak sees only risk. Wing Scholar Era's voice was musical like birds singing. But I see opportunity. The human showed us something we have forgotten. She showed us that connection is possible even with those we fear. Hisrak hissed in irritation. Connection is not necessary for diplomacy. Respect and distance are sufficient, are they? Era challenged. We have had peace through respect and distance for centuries, yet we barely know each other. We barely trust each other. Perhaps the human way offers something better. The debate continued for hours. Some species supported the human approach. Others condemned it. The chamber filled with raised voices and conflicting opinions. Finally, the council chair called for order. We have heard many perspectives today. The chair's voice was calm and neutral. But we must make a decision. Should this human behavior be allowed to continue, or should we forbid such interactions as too dangerous? Before the vote could begin, a new voice spoke. It was Prime Matriarch Velcra of Vraxia. She had come to the council herself to testify. Her massive form dominated the speaking platform. I speak for my people. Her voice was powerful, commanding attention. 3 days ago, I would have agreed with Counselor Hisrak. I would have said the human was foolish, dangerous. But I have seen what her actions created. She activated her own video file. The screen showed Vraxian cubs playing together. Adult Vraxians teaching them games. Families laughing. The whole settlement transformed. For generations, we taught our cubs only to fight, only to survive. We thought this made us strong. But the human showed us that we had lost something precious. She reminded us how to play, how to connect. And in 3 days, my people have changed more than they did in 300 years. The chamber was silent. Every representative was watching the screen. They saw the joy on Vraxian faces. They saw cubs and adults bonding in new ways. They saw a warrior species rediscovering gentleness. The matriarch continued. The humans have a saying. They call it pack bonding. They form connections with many species, with their animal companions on Earth, with aliens they meet across the stars. They do not see predator and prey. They see potential friends. Perhaps we should learn from this. Counselor Hisrak was not convinced. This is emotion speaking, not logic. One positive outcome does not prove this approach is safe. What happens when it fails? When a human is hurt? When trust is betrayed? Then we learn and adapt. A new voice joined the conversation. It was Captain Yunji Choi of the human vessel. She stood tall in her uniform, confident but respectful. We humans do not expect perfection. We know that building relationships involves risk, but we also know that the rewards are worth it. She pulled up her own data files. Images of Earth appeared on the screen. Humans with dogs, humans with cats, humans with horses and birds and even reptiles. Look at our history. We domesticated wolves, creatures that could easily kill us. We made them our companions, our friends, our family. We did this with many species, not through domination but through mutual respect and play. This is who we are. This is what we offer the galaxy. Wing Scholar Era leaned forward with interest. How many species on Earth have formed these bonds with humans? Dozens, Captain Choi smiled. We have bonded with predators, prey animals, birds, even insects. We see each species as unique individuals worthy of connection. We believe this ability is not weakness. It is our greatest strength. Impossible. Hisrak shook his head. You cannot form genuine bonds with so many different types of beings. These must be relationships of use, not friendship. Then you do not understand humans. Ambassador Hyun Tae stood now. He had been quiet until this moment. We grieve when our animal companions die. We celebrate their births. We play with them. We protect them. These are not relationships of use. These are relationships of love. The word hung in the air. Love. Many species in the chamber did not have an equivalent concept. They had loyalty, duty, mutual benefit. But love was something different. Love was choosing connection even when it was not logical. Even when it was risky. The chair spoke again. This discussion has revealed deep differences in how we approach relationships. Perhaps we need more than debate. Perhaps we need a test. Counselor Hisrak immediately responded. I propose a challenge. Let the humans attempt their bonding approach with my people. The Scalar are not soft like the Vraxians. We will show that this method does not work with all species. The Scalar were known as one of the most rigid species in the galaxy. They valued order, hierarchy, and distance. If humans could connect with them, it would prove something significant. Ambassador Hyun Tae looked at his team. Captain Choi nodded. She was ready. But where was Lieutenant Park? She was the one who had started all of this. She should be here. At that moment, Minji entered the chamber. She had been delayed by a meeting with several species who wanted to learn more about play-based interaction. She looked tired but happy. Rix was with her. The little Vraxian cub had become her constant companion. When Rix saw the gathered representatives, the cub stopped and stared. So many different beings, so many shapes and sizes. The cub pressed close to Minji's leg, suddenly shy. Minji knelt down and whispered something to Rix. The cub looked up at her. Then slowly Rix walked toward the speaking platform. The little Vraxian climbed up the steps and stood beside the matriarch. Rix looked out at all the representatives. Then the cub did something unexpected. The cub waved. It was a human gesture learned from Minji, a simple greeting. Hello, I am here. I want to be friends. Several representatives gasped. Others made sounds of surprise. Even Counselor Hisrak looked taken aback. The cub had learned to communicate across species in just 3 days. Wing Scholar Era began to clap her hands together, copying the human gesture of approval. One by one, other representatives joined in. The sound filled the chamber. Applause for a brave little cub who had helped change the galaxy. The vote was taken. By a narrow margin, the council agreed. The human approach to diplomacy would be allowed to continue. They would be given opportunities to prove that their way of building connections could work with many different species. But Counselor Hisarak's challenge remained. The humans would visit the Scalar homeworld. They would attempt to form bonds with one of the most distant and rigid species in the galaxy. It would be the true test of whether human pack bonding was truly universal. Minji accepted the challenge without hesitation. She looked at Rix, who was now sitting proudly beside the matriarch. If she could befriend a predator cub in minutes, surely she could find common ground with anyone. The galaxy was watching. The future of interspecies relations hung in the balance. But Minji was not worried. She had learned something important from her time with Rix. Every intelligent being, no matter how different, wanted the same basic things. To be seen, to be understood, to be valued, and play was the language that could express all of those things. She would go to the Scalar world. She would find their version of Rix. And she would show the galaxy that humanity's gift was not just their technology or their courage. It was their ability to see friends where others saw only strangers. 6 months had passed since that first chase on Vraxia Prime. Minji stood on the landing platform once again, but this time she was not arriving. She was returning home. The purple sky looked the same. The air smelled the same. But everything else had changed. A crowd waited for her. Vraxian cubs ran freely through the settlement now. Their laughter filled the air. Adult Vraxians walked with lighter steps. The whole planet felt different. Happier. More alive. Rix was there, of course. The young Vraxian had grown in the past months. Taller now. Stronger. But still playful. Still curious. The cub saw Minji and ran toward her at full speed. Minji braced herself laughing as Rix crashed into her with an excited hug. You came back. Rix's voice had improved too. The cub could speak several human words now, learning, growing, becoming a bridge between two species. Of course I came back. Minji ruffled the scales on Rix's head. I promised, did I not? Behind Rix came others, cubs from different species. A young fair with bright feathers, a small scaler whose scales had just started to harden, a tiny hive being with many eyes. All of them had come to the cultural exchange program that Minji now led. The program was simple. Young beings from different species came to live and play together for 3 months. They learned each other's games. They formed friendships, and when they returned to their homeworlds, they brought those friendships with them. Prime Matriarch Velcra approached with her usual grace. She no longer seemed so intimidating to Minji. They had become friends. Real friends, the kind that played games together when no one was watching. Welcome home, Lieutenant Park. The matriarch's voice was warm. Or should I say, Chief of Interspecies Relations? Minji smiled. Minji is fine. Titles are for official meetings. This is family. Family. The matriarch repeated the word with satisfaction. Yes. That is what we have become. They walked together toward the settlement. Minji saw the changes everywhere. New playgrounds built for different species. Cubs playing mixed games that combined rules from multiple worlds. Adults from different planets working together, talking, laughing. The challenge from Counselor Hisrak had been met. Minji had gone to the Scalar homeworld. She had spent weeks learning their ways, understanding their rigid culture, finding the cracks where warmth could grow. It had not been easy. The Scalar did not play like the Vraxians did. They did not chase or hide, but they had their own forms of connection. Puzzle solving, pattern making, intellectual challenges that required cooperation. Minji had learned to speak their language of logic, and slowly, carefully, she had shown them that working together could be more than efficient. It could be enjoyable. It could be friendship. Now, young Scalar came to the exchange program too. They taught other species their puzzle games, and they learned to appreciate the joy of physical play. Different expressions of the same need. Connection, belonging, joy. A ceremony had been prepared for today. Minji did not know the details. Rix had kept it secret, which was difficult for the excited cub. Now they approached the central plaza. The same plaza where the chase had ended 6 months ago. Representatives from 20 different species waited there. Ambassador Hyun Tai stood with Captain Daehyun Lee and Dr. Jiwoo Kang. They all smiled at her. Even serious Captain Daehyun, who had learned to appreciate what Minji had accomplished. Wing Scholar Ira stepped forward. She held a beautiful object. It was a helmet, but not a regular one. It had been decorated by cubs from every species in the exchange program. Feathers, scales, crystalline structures, painted patterns, all combined into something unique and beautiful. Lieutenant Minji Park. Ira's voice was formal but kind. 6 months ago, a cub ran away with your helmet. That moment changed the galaxy. Today, we return a helmet to you. But this one represents something different. It represents unity, friendship, the connections you have helped us build. Minji took the helmet carefully. It was heavier than her old one. Heavy with meaning, with love, with the hopes of an entire galaxy learning a new way to exist together. Thank you. Her voice was thick with emotion. But this belongs to all of us. I was just the first to play. You all chose to join the game. Rix tugged on her arm. Now we race again, the cub announced. But this time, everyone races. The plaza erupted with excited sounds. Cubs from every species lined up. Adults joined them too. Some species could run. Some could fly. Some could hop or slither or roll. It did not matter. They would all race together. Minji set the ceremonial helmet carefully aside. She would treasure it always. But right now, she needed to run. She took her place at the starting line. Rick stood beside her, ready, tall now, confident, but still the same cub who had stolen her helmet all those months ago. Are you ready to lose again? Rix teased. The cub's eyes sparkled with mischief. Maybe this time I will try harder. Minji grinned back. Someone called out the start, "Go!" And they were off, running, flying, hopping, all moving toward the fountain at the far end of the plaza. Species that would never naturally exist together, now racing side by side, playing, laughing, living. Minji ran as fast as she could this time, no holding back. Rix had grown strong and fast. The cub kept pace with her easily. They ran shoulder to shoulder, stride for stride. Around them, other beings rushed past or fell behind. But Minji only focused on Rix, her friend, her first friend in the stars. They reached the fountain at the same moment. Both of them touched the stone edge together. A tie. Perfect. Fair. Equal. Minji bent over, breathing hard. Real effort this time. Real competition. But still play. Still joy. Rix stood tall, chest heaving. We both won. Everyone won. Minji straightened up and looked around at all the beings catching their breath, smiling, happy, together. This is what winning looks like. The other racers arrived, some fast, some slow, but everyone was cheered. Everyone was celebrated, because the race was not about being first. It was about participating, about trying, about being part of something bigger than yourself. As the Ayur sun set on Vraxia Prime, casting purple and gold light across the plaza, Minji felt content. The galaxy still had problems. There were still species that did not understand, still conflicts to resolve. But something fundamental had changed. The idea had been planted. Friendship across species was possible. Play could build bridges that politics never could. Ambassador Hyuntae came to stand beside her. You started something remarkable. He spoke quietly, just for her. The council has approved funding for exchange programs on 30 more worlds. You will be busy. Good. Minji watched Rix playing with the other cubs. This is what I was meant to do. Not just study aliens, but help us all understand each other. Help us all be friends. The human gift to the galaxy. Hyuntae smiled. Pack bonding. The ability to see family in everyone. Not just a human gift anymore. Minji gestured to the playing cubs. Look, they are all learning. Vraxians bonding with Fair. Scalor playing with hive beings. We taught them, but now they are making it their own. Captain Daehyun Lee joined them. His expression was softer than it used to be. I never believed it would work, he admitted. When you chased that cub, I thought you were taking a foolish risk. But you changed everything. You changed me too. How? Minji asked. I see people now, not just potential threats. I look at an alien species and wonder what games their children play. What makes them laugh? What they dream about. You taught me that security is not just about protection. It is also about connection. Rix ran over again, never far from Minji for long. Come. You must meet the new cubs who arrived today. They are scared. They need to learn how to play. Minji laughed and let Rix pull her toward a group of nervous-looking young beings from a species she had never met before. They had many legs and colorful patterns on their bodies. They huddled together, uncertain in this strange place. Minji knelt down to their level. Hello. I am Minji. Would you like to play a game? The cubs looked at each other. Then, slowly, one of them nodded. What kind of game? A chasing game. Minji pulled off her jacket and held it up. Someone takes this and runs, everyone else chases, and you know what? The one being chased always wins because that is the rule. The rule that makes everyone feel brave and happy and strong. One of the cubs reached out tentatively and took the jacket. Really? I win? Really? Minji smiled warmly. Now run. The cub ran, and Minji chased, and Rix chased, and soon cubs from every species were chasing together, running through the settlement, laughing, playing, building friendships that would last a lifetime, building a future where species differences mattered less than the universal language of joy. The galaxy was changing, one chase at a time, one game at a time, one friendship at a time. And it had all started with a curious cub and a human who understood that sometimes the best way to make peace was simply to play. The stars shone bright above Raxia Prime, and below, beings from across the cosmos learned that they were not so different after all. They all wanted to be seen, to be valued, to belong. And humanity had shown them that these things were possible, not through treaties or technology, but through the simple act of playing together, of letting someone win, of choosing connection over fear. This was the human gift. This was why they mattered. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they saw friends everywhere they looked. And in seeing friends, they created them. One helmet, one race, one moment of trust, and everything changed forever.